So I get a call from one of the late shows and says, hey, so-and-so recommended you from LA. He says, well, we can't do it, but here's a guy, Rivera, who can just read a paper and write material. And then, so I did, they said, we're going to give you an audition, and they were talking money. They were talking all this stuff. And I made the mistake of telling my roommates. And as you know, never tell anyone something's good's going to happen unless it happens. And so I said, guys, don't say a word. So that weekend, they go to the Punchline in San Francisco. Basically, they're burning every bridge in San Francisco, going, bleep you, bleep you, bleep you. Mikey's going to be writing for LA. We're going with him. The hell with all of you.
Call him Florida comedy royalty. He's a father, a husband. He's a teacher, and also an award-winning stand-up comedian, Mr. Mike Rivera. Thank you so much for being on with us, Mike.
Thanks, Pat. I love Tony. I haven't seen him in a while. He's just one of my favorite people. Thank you, Tony.
How you doing, man? Yeah, it's been a minute.
It's been good. It's been really good.
You're a teacher. You just got back to work. How much has your alcohol consumption increased?
It is just alcohol. It's like,
you're right. It is Florida.
it's very interesting this year. I got good kids this year.
Okay.
So that's really good, but curriculum's always kicking my butt. And it is really tough to balance teaching 5 days, middle school, 8th grade. And usually I am working every weekend, and I had to take some time off, which we'll talk about, to go on the tour. But after 23 years, we see the light, a couple of more years, and then hopefully just kick off. So that's good. I teach pre-AP geography and world history.
Okay. See?
The people that do the SATs and PSATs, they're the ones that run our course. So it's a very higher level.
Okay.
And,
well, let me ask you this. Yeah, I have a follow-up question. Since you deal with geography and so forth, how soon do you feel like we're going to be changing the maps again with all the stuff going on in the world?
Right.
And that's always we talk about how maps are changing, and sometimes, but now I'm getting way into curriculum because sometimes there's 3 major map services. There's Google, Apple, and Bing. Wow, I sound like know what I'm talking about. And sometimes, if there's a disputed area, sometimes one of the 3, Google, of course, is the number 1, then Apple, then Bing, but sometimes they'll put little dots and stuff, and it's ever who has the most input, control of the country actually gets to decide. So basically, the more authoritarian the country is, the more likely they'll divide it up and stuff like that.
Wow.
I read that yesterday.
That's crazy. So whoever has the most followers.
Yes.
And he read that on Google. It's a scam.
It is.
That is, nowadays, that was a good question, Tony, because nowadays with history and, like you said, geography and stuff like that, so many things, it's almost like it's changing daily, and it's becoming almost a little comical. I got to tell you, man.
We do the 9 weeks of geography, and then get them ready for AP.
Wow.
And then we do prehistory, basically from the caveman to the ancient period, then up to 1400. So I think I'm safe for the moment. It's my job is to teach kids, and this is just, again, comedy goes, I think, well with teaching. But my job is to teach the kids not what, I never usually give me opinions based on facts. And my job for those kids is make sure those facts that they give me are really applicable sources. Find out where those sources came. Do they have a bias? Are they reliable? Can they be corroborated? Yeah. What we do is you analyze and interpret with those tools. This is not funny though, but that's what I do.
What did you start first? And is there a preference over either? Because you're kind of walking that fine line that a lot of people are not able to walk with 2 careers.
And it is very time consuming, and I've been doing it for a long time. But when it first came, the passion for history, that's been always there since I used to read an encyclopedia as a kid, and then came the love for comedy at the same time. So then many years ago, started out in the San Francisco Bay Area. I was fortunate enough to have a club called in San Jose, The Last Laugh, and as a senior in college, I would go there, and on Sunday nights when there wasn't a lot of people there. But this is when they would have all these great acts back from the late 80s and stuff like that. And then I could talk to them and things like that. And they were very generous. You know, I can go, and you know this, the people, we always know the people that helped us and stuff like that. And I'll never forget, someone would spend like a half hour talking with me. Mm-hmm. And one of them was Dave Coulier. Do you remember Dave from Full House? Yeah. You know, because I love doing voices. He would do the voices. And then we'd be talking and stuff. And he goes, hey, next time, why don't you get on stage? Maybe you could open for me. I mean, again, I always say, how cool is that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
And then, so that club, we got in, and then I remember, and then the first person that I ever got to MC, and you're scared, but this was back in the late 80s where basically the club was Tuesday through Sunday, and it would pack 250 people every show. It was amazing. And they would branch, and basically in the San Francisco Bay Area in the late 80s and early 90s, you could work the whole year in that area. You had literally 12 full-time clubs within 3.5 hours.
Wow.
You would have then the weekend rooms and the one-nighters. You never had to leave. And they would book you twice a year.
Jeez.
That's a great schedule right there.
It was. And then, so back to the point. So when I got to be the house MC at the Last Laugh in San Jose. Mm-hmm. And the first person I got to ever work with professionally was Bob Saget.
Oh.
And,
wow.
You know, everything they say was true. He couldn't have been nicer. He was goofing with me and stuff. He says, relax, and would just spend time talking. And then he would tell me about stuff. You know, he goes, yeah, I'm nice, but on stage, I just like to say things, which and he was just so funny. He was just a natural, very sweet man. Never forgot that, you know. So Coulier is the guy that told me to get into comedy, and Saget's the first guy I worked with.
So
that's half the cast right there.
It is.
I was going to say, why weren't you on Full House, and what the hell happened?
Stuff. And so the thing with Bob Saget and Dave Coulier, even though they were incredible stand-ups, when Coulier first started, the buzz, because he was from Detroit, I once was talking with Mike Binder, and you just sit there and listen. You listen, and he goes, and he said the R word, Robin, because that's in the San Francisco Bay Area. That is the man. And he goes, this guy's as quick as Robin. But when you talk to Coulier, he had his map planned, and so did Saget. They want to get onto TV and do the shows, and then get in from there, and then do the stand-up where they know you. They had a goal.
Yeah.
And Coulier was always talking about sitcom, TV, get a role.
Yeah.
So they had a strategy, and it worked for them too.
It did, and that's the thing, because we didn't, Tony. So that's why.
Yeah, exactly. Our strategy is awful. That's mine.
Mine is horrible. Mine was, originally I wanted to be a writer, and then I had a writing opportunity with one of the late night shows, and it was it was back then. Again, it seems everyone was really helpful. So I get a call from one of the late shows and says, "Hey, so and so recommended you from LA," because says, well, we can't do it, but here's a guy, Rivera, who can just read a paper and write material. And then, so I did, they said, we're going to give you an audition, and they were talking money. They were talking all this stuff. And I made the mistake of telling my roommates. And as you know, never tell anyone something's good's going to happen unless it happens. And so I said, guys, don't say a word. So that weekend, they go to the Punchline in San Francisco. Basically, they're burning every bridge in San Francisco, going, bleep you, bleep you, bleep you. Mikey's going to be writing for LA. We're going with him. The hell with all of you. A call, a week later says, hey, we're going to go with this guy. And here's a true story. I can't mention the show, but you could probably figure out. And I go, why? And they said, well, your writing was more edgy. Your writing is more like for Letterman. And then I copped an attitude and said, but isn't that like the gold standard? Instead of them pursuing it, because if they went down to 3 people and I'm one of the 3, what do you do, Tony? What do you do, Pat? You move to LA because you're on their radar.
You got, of course.
Yeah. You got to be there now. You got to be there.
Yeah, because my friends that went there ended up producing Malcolm in the Middle, winning Emmys and stuff. And I'm like going, so it's the fight or flight. And I'm like going, well, the hell with you, man. I'll go on the road for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. Instead of taking that break, that you're on the radar. And this is what, this is what this forum's for. Pat, you know this. It's like, no, 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 no. You have a door open. Who gets on a late time writing show on their first audition?
Yeah.
Very few of us, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
But the thing is, the door is open. They know who you are. Go, hey man, I'll be down there. You should have moved to LA. You're on the radar, and then you go there. But
Once they notice you, now they're watching you, and they're just waiting for you to develop until you're ready for their production or whatever they have. They're like,
absolutely,
now he's ready. Let's bring him
and
in.
again, and I go, hindsight is always 20/20. If we would, it's amazing who would have probably made it bigger with social media.
Oh yeah.
Because back in, again, I knew that San Francisco scene, the Holy City Zoo, which is the, to me, it's the Mecca of San Francisco comedy, because that was always Robin's baby.
Mm-hmm.
And his aura just always loomed over that. And that was one of the, as a comic, because in the 80s, if you didn't like Robin, he was the god. And to actually see him, I talk about it a lot, what an influence to see him working, Coconuts, obviously, in a small club like that, the Holy City Zoo, to see Robin Williams and you're 10 feet away watching him work. You are just really examining it. I actually had to follow him after he did an hour.
Oh, how would that go?
I told the MCs, I said, guys, could you do some time between us? Because there was only maybe 20 people in the audience. But when he got up on stage, I've never seen 20 people sound like 100.
Right.
And just the faces on these guys, they're just like, it's the man. And in the comics, we just shut up and we watch. And then what do my friends do? As soon as he leaves, he's like, give it up. They go, and now the comedy styles of Mike Rivera. Cool. And it was death. It was death. One of the best lines ever. And I think this guy, and it is well agreed, in San Francisco comedy, there's Robin, and there's a guy named Larry Bubbles Brown. He is beloved in San Francisco. When you see a San Francisco comic, ask him if he knows Bubs. Bubs has influenced dozens and dozens of comedians for the past 25, almost 30 years. Huh. And so Bubs is on stage, and then Robin would just always leave afterwards, and he'd go next door. And then I remember the best line was, Bubbles says, hey, Robin, you can sit through 10 minutes of me. I sat through 2.5 hours of Popeye.
Oh, nice.
I was there. It was always, because I loved his speed. I love this stuff. And you just watch him. And the weird thing that I always say about Robin, it was tough to break out a character for him.
Yeah.
Incredibly tough.
Yeah, he was like a cross between a machine gun and those pom-pom guns, like on the warships. It was just nonstop coming at you.
And the best way that we could describe him was, and we're all good, so let's say I have a pair of glasses with red on it. Mm-hmm. So in 5 seconds, we might be able to come up with 2 things. Robin could come up with 5. And we saw this all the time. He would just pick things up from people's stuff. And, one of the key lessons of improv, head to mouth, head to mouth, head to mouth. He never stopped in the middle. He would do the head to mouth. And I'm like, how do you, head to mouth, head to mouth. That was one of the key things he always said, head to mouth. You don't pause here, because he says, even if it's remotely funny, the audience knows you are thinking of it right then and there. Boom. And that's one of the greatest lessons you can ever learn in comedy, Yeah,
that's a great observation too, how to understand that the audience's conscious mind, because they, even though it might not be hilarious, they get that you're going at it.
They know you just thought of it. And he says, don't pause. Do not pause. Because you think of the mind, because you see when comics, we have that look to it, it's like that. That little, should I say it or not? He goes, say it. Unless it's, and by the way, here's one thing I always talk with comics in San Francisco and stuff. We never saw Robin mean. Think about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
He pretended he'd be angry and stuff, but you never saw him get really mean.
Nice.
That's true.
Amazing.
Yeah. Think about it. You never really have. So. That's a good observation.
But that was because there are many other comics who are really quick, really this, and again, without mentioning names, who like were always in San Francisco. Who's the next Robin? There's never a next Robin, right? But the thing was, they would be quick. They'd be incredible master technicians. But there was always a little mean. There's always a little bit of meanness, and I think in all comedy.
Yeah.
Robin really was able not to really get that, so you weren't offended. There you go. No, here's the thing about the San Francisco scene.
Yeah.
There's always this competition between LA and San Francisco. San Francisco comics were, I'm not going to LA. I'm not going to go pose and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So it's like they wanted LA to come to San Francisco.
Oh, okay.
No. Right. And this is because you had that attitude, right? In my book, I tell the story when it's in the late 80s. And the cool thing about the Holy City Zoo was when you got to sit on the outside bench, you had to be invited to sit on that bench by the manager of the club. Oh. And when you were able to, and she'd go, you can sit down here. That was like a blessing from the Pope. So one day Robin comes he's with Goldthwait and Dennis Miller when Dennis was regular Dennis, right? Doing the Saturday night shows. And he's there. And I wrote about this, and he looks, and by the way, we were told, so when they all walk in, there's like 5 of us out there because we were just performing, showcase night. That's what it mostly was. And we all go, they're just, you don't kiss anyone's butt. You don't kiss anyone's butt. You pretend they're not there. You don't oogle. You don't go, oh my God, look who's here from blah, blah, blah. You just, hey, what's up? Hey, what's up? So I'm sitting on the table and Robin's over there. And then Dennis Miller comes over. He goes, do you mind if I sit down? And I'm like, yeah, whatever. And then we ended up talking for 20 to 30 minutes, and he was telling me how he used to write and work with the whatchamacallit for the weekend updates.
Wow, for Saturday Night Live.
Oh, SNL, yeah.
When he was on top of his game. Yeah. So here as a kid, and I'm like, can I sit? He asked me permission to sit the thing.
Wow.
And then, he proceeded to talk about we talked about Pittsburgh and stuff. He had lots of origins there. I knew some comics, so we bonded, but then we were talking about what bits get on, what bits don't, because it is edited a lot, because Lorne Michaels was known for that, cutting bits on the floor and stuff like that. And he would talk about it. It was, and I'm just like going, yeah. And inside I'm going, oh my God, I'm getting a tutorial on Saturday Night Live here.
And I always love to ask these things. Dennis seemed pretty cool. He always strikes me as just being a dude who would be, you need a thesaurus to talk with him. But I mean, you have to, but he seemed to he'd always be one to ingratiate himself. Was he also nice? He
like I said, he asked permission to sit with me.
Right.
And that said it all. And he sat there and we ended up talking. And but by the way, this was, but he was at the height, Wow. And he spent a half hour because number one, he knew I wasn't oogling. So he was talking more as a professional.
He was comfortable.
Yes. It's like the nuts and bolts of comedy, not the, oh my God, tell us how you're in TV. And I was like, oh man, we write this stuff, it gets cut. And, he was like, almost, we were kvetching, as I said.
Wow.
And that was really cool. And that was the scene in San Francisco. But again, I'll reinforce it. So the San Francisco comics were always like, oh, LA's coming to us. LA's coming to us. No, you go to LA. That's the one thing that my big advice. You go to LA.
You go to Southern California.
And I did not. I'm like going, no. So I went on the road after that for a couple of years. And
well, how'd you end up in Florida?
Yeah.
I got married.
Oh.
Okay.
That's what usually brings people.
Yeah, I got married and then I went into teaching.
Yeah.
But because I was on the road for like maybe 5 or 6 years, and then but I always said, if you never burn a bridge, you can always get work in comedy. That's comedy. It's not about getting booked the first time. I tell the young children who we try to mentor, as you know, it's about being booked the 6th, the 10th, the 15th time. And that's the best advice I think I could give a young comic. I go, it's not about the 1st, it's about the 10th. Mm-hmm. When they keep booking you over and over again, that means something. Everyone's going to get their first shot, but you better make it good the 10th time.
That's what they say about my lovemaking. It's first
Absolutely.
or second, at least by 10 or 15.
They give you 10 times?
10 times.
I mean, not the same person.
Exactly.
Oh,
I mean, no one has that kind of time.
it's a judgment call. It's like your 10th time, they're first. It's like,
Right.
I'm pretty good now.
Yeah.
Grading on a curve. Well, so you moved to Florida now.
Yes.
3,000 miles across the country. You come off the road. You're married. You're going to be a dad. You're still doing comedy, and you get on a show called The View, and you win a title called America's Most Hilarious Teacher. Walk us briefly through this. How does this come about? And the day of you win when you win.
Well, here's the thing. Normally, we don't do competitions. I think the three of us, correct?
Yeah.
Correct.
We don't do that. But it was, Margaret from Bonkers goes, "Hey, Mike, I think you're really good for this." And I came home because usually back then I would not stay the night because, you have kids. So I would drive anytime I have a gig. If it's within 4 hours, I come home. Okay. And then I got home around 1:30 in the morning. I see this email. She goes, and something inside me, I normally would say, "Nah, this is stupid," And I said, "Let me do it." So I spent almost an hour and a half coming up with clips, coming up with stuff.
Oh,
And then I sent it in. And then I remember I'm in school one day and I get an email from ABC Studios. And it says, "We're interested." And that basically, and then I read it to my students. They're like going, "Oh my God, Mr. Rivera," right? And then we did 2 phone interviews. And then after the second one, they're going, "We're still interested," which basically means you're on the show. And then they go, "Would you like to come on the show?" And I'm like, "Yeah, why not?" And
see,
so
you learn that from the bench.
yes.
Yeah, okay.
And that was the thing. And that's another good callback there. So, and the reason, and so when you go to, and it was first class all the way.
Let me say this real quick. What year was this?
Was it 8 years ago or something like that? I don't know.
Okay.
But so they send you there, and ABC Studios in New York is just humongous. And they couldn't have been nicer when I get in there. And they're filming 2 shows.
Oh.
So I'm meeting everybody. And I remember, and again, I'm a fanboy or fangirl, whatever. And when Sigourney, but they tell you, what's cool is the executive producers tell you who's on the show and how to handle them.
Oh, cool. That's cool.
So, and they said, "This is who's cool. This is who's not." They said Sigourney Weaver was with David Hyde Pierce, who played Frasier. Right. And they're like going, so she bumps into me, and there's like 3 big rooms that you could be in and private stuff. I mean, it's just humongous. She bumps into me, spills coffee, and goes, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." And then she puts out her hand and goes, "I'm Sigourney Weaver." And I'm going, "I'm the teacher guy." Now she knows I'm on the show. Goes, "Oh, you're the teacher guy." And she's like going to David Hyde Pierce, David, come here. It's the teacher guy. And also then, and Terry Crews was on that show, and of course got to meet the whole cast and stuff. And they couldn't have been nicer. And I'll say this, hopefully I don't ruin anything. Most of it's an act. That. Behind the cameras, everyone's just laughing and stuff in the background. Then the camera comes on, turn it on.
That's awesome. Now, after getting coffee spilled on you by Sigourney Weaver,
Yes.
meeting David Hyde Pierce, being the future president of the United States. Tony, we got a hell of a guest on, by the way. This guy rubs elbows, man.
Either that or he's Forrest Gump. I don't know which.
That's right.
So you get onto the show. Now,
Yeah.
this is now, is it a competition where you're actually competing on The View, or was this
Yes.
a prior competition? Okay, so you're.
No, they had 5 teachers on.
Okay.
And I'd be watching them. And so I'm doing Thursday, and they're going to show so they're going to put me on Friday.
Okay.
So Thursday they're showing live. So I'm in the back room, and there was this one teacher comedian who was basically saying, "Well, when I win, do I show up here on Monday?" This is beforehand.
Wow.
And so the people that produce the producers give the ones that sponsor the show to sit in the back. There was like these bunch of ladies there, and they knew that I was going to go on the next show. So they're staying there, and they're just watching. And so one of my students actually is talking to me on the phone while he's watching this comedian perform on stage. And he is tearing this comic to shreds going, "Oh, Mr. Rivera, they're going for a New York reference. Are you kidding me?" And these ladies are just dying at my 13-year-old student basically critiquing the comic who thinks they're going to win. And she's talking about all the different outfits she's going to do and stuff. And on stage, she goes, oh, and she goes, she made a Guido reference. Can you believe that, Mr. Rivera? She said, Guido, yeah, she's not going to, and all this other stuff. And they are dying. So then, so basically, all I knew was, and then you keep your mouth shut. You never say no to a network television. If they said, could you rewrite this bit? Yes, yes. I would be in an airport. You have to send everything you're going to say because of legal on ABC. So the mouse has to look over everything. And every time they'd say, could you switch this? I'm like, sure. Could you write something on this? Sure. You never say no.
Right.
Yeah.
And they said that's one of the reasons. So so I did that. So then I did that Friday. And as soon as I got off the stage, they go, you won. And I'm like, okay.
Nice. Right then and there.
But the thing was, because of everyone at my school said, you're going to win, you're going to win, you're going to win. So they sort of took away the, whatchamacallit, because it's like, if I didn't win, it wasn't good enough.
That nervous energy of
yeah. So all the friends were like, oh, you got this, Mike. I'm going, I don't got this. And so then they had me back on and I got to do 5 minutes. Then I come back 2 days later and it was like one of the most top shows because Barbara actually went on because she was very sick. And so get this, the next show, you had Bloomberg was on the show. Mm-hmm. You had Regis, who is hysterical.
Yes, he is. Or was.
So Regis, you could hear Regis literally 50 miles away. And he was, and then because I had the hair back then, and they go, oh, Regis, he looks just like you. And he looks at me and goes, you're a very fine looking man. And he was just hysterical.
Those that are watching and listening, when he says Regis, you should go and look him up.
Yeah.
So that's where they announced the winner. But the thing was, so Barbara Walters was coming back, and so it was like the highest rated. So they had like around 12, 13 million people, that one thing. But the thing was, so then coming back, I see the elevator, and Miss Walters is in the elevator. So me and 2 guys were helping her. She wasn't really feeling that well. So I got to spend like a nice long elevator ride with Barbara Walters.
Wow.
Wow, that's kind of cool.
She was very nice.
Yeah. That's
good. I go, hi. I remember I go, how you doing, Miss Walters? She goes, I've had better days, young man. So it's just
yeah. Aw.
She was very nice.
Awesome, man.
And there'll be a bunch of us. I'm very, very lucky to be on that show. And it's really cool, which again, we have to talk about how, it's great to see. I don't know if you guys saw some of the theaters we're playing. That's
beautiful.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Awesome.
I like that. Let me cram in a few more things. You mentioned before about a book. Do we have information about that you want to hit on?
Yeah, it's on my website. The stand-up. Just Google comic Mike Rivera, and it'll pop up, the stand-up teacher. And my book is on there from stand-up, a comedian stand-up teacher, and then it gives all my dates, which I just updated yesterday.
Good.
And
Good. Yeah, we're going to have you back, man, because there's so much to talk about. I mean, like I said, we could have done 2-3 hours just about you being in the West Coast, which was amazing. So listen, man, we love you. We love what you do. It's a pleasure. It was a pleasure working with you.